The holographic display flickered with contemptuous laughter as Ambassador Velthara of the Quintessent Empire delivered humanity's death sentence. Her crystalline features twisted into what passed for amusement among her species, each facet of her face catching the artificial light of the Galactic Council chambers. "Humans!" she spat, the word dripping with disdain through her translation implant. "A species so primitive they still burn fossil fuels and wage wars over territorial boundaries. Their largest weapons barely scratch our shield generators." Around the circular amphitheater, representatives from 12 different star-spanning civilizations nodded in agreement. The hegemonic claws clicked their mandibles approvingly. The gas-wraith collective's amorphous forms pulsed with shared mirth. Even the normally stoic silicon minds of Kepler 442b emitted approving electronic chirps. Earth's lone representative, Admiral Kyer Voss, stood motionless at the defendant's podium. Her weathered face betrayed nothing as the alien council delivered. Humanity's ultimatum: complete subjugation or total annihilation. The choice was simple: become a slave species or face the combined might of the galactic hegemony. "Your pathetic fleet of metal ships," continued Velthara, "cannot even achieve faster-than-light travel without our gifted technology. You are children playing with toys, believing yourselves warriors." The hegemony had been expanding for 3 millennia, absorbing or destroying every species that dared resist their dominion. Humanity's recent emergence into galactic politics had been viewed as nothing more than an amusing diversion, until human colonies began refusing hegemony tribute demands. Admiral Voss finally spoke, her voice carrying across the chamber with surprising calm. "We reject your terms." The laughter stopped abruptly. Velthara's crystalline features hardened. "Then you have chosen extinction. The hegemony fleet will arrive at your pathetic home system within 6 rotations. Your primitive sun will become a monument to your foolishness." "Perhaps," Voss replied, her lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. "But you seem to have made one critical error in your calculations." "And what might that be, mammal?" "You assumed we were defenseless because you've never seen us defend ourselves." Voss activated her personal transmitter. "Control. This is Shepard. Execute. Lazarus Protocol." Across the galaxy, a signal propagated through quantum entanglement networks that the hegemony had never detected. On 17 different worlds that had once housed human colonies, worlds the aliens believed they had completely sterilized, ancient, automated systems stirred to life. The truth was simple and terrible. Humanity had never been as primitive as they appeared. For the past 2 centuries, while engaging in seemingly innocent trade and cultural exchange, human scientists had been reverse engineering every piece of alien technology they encountered. More importantly, they had been preparing every destroyed human colony had been evacuated through hidden tunnel networks moments before orbital bombardment. Every primitive human ship carried sensor arrays that would make hegemony intelligence weep. And every human citizen who had ever set foot on an alien world had been gathering intelligence for something the galaxy was about to discover. Humanity had learned patience from their countless wars. They had learned deception from their survival. And they had learned that sometimes the greatest strength was allowing your enemy to believe in your weakness. As the Galactic Council chamber erupted in confused chatter, Velthara demanded answers. "What is this Lazarus Protocol?" Admiral Voss stood straighter, and for the first time the aliens in the chamber felt something they hadn't experienced in millennia: uncertainty. "Lazarus," she said quietly, "was the man who rose from the dead." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. None of them yet understood that they had just witnessed the end of their civilization. The quintessent war fleet Eternal Dominion materialized at the edge of the Sol system 6 days. Later, its massive hull bristling with weapons capable of cracking planets. Fleet Admiral Zixandra, Velthara's military counterpart, studied the tactical displays with growing confusion. "Where are their defenses?" she demanded of her tactical officer. The readings showed exactly what their intelligence had predicted. A handful of primitive space stations, some mining installations, and Earth itself, a blue-green marble spinning helplessly in space. No planetary shields, no defense platforms, no sign of the fleet that had once terrorized hegemony merchants. "Perhaps they evacuated, Admiral," suggested her second-in-command, a beetle-like crawler named Thickscott. Cowardice is a common trait among inferior species. Zixandra's crystalline features reflected satisfaction. The humans had made their choice and sealed their fate. Her fleet of 200 ships would make quick work of this backwater system, and the hegemony would have another cautionary tale to tell rebellious worlds. "Begin systematic bombardment of all installations," she ordered. "Leave the planet intact. We'll need it as an example." The first salvo of plasma torpedoes streaked toward the orbital stations. Impact was expected in 14 minutes. Victory was assured. Then the stars began to change. It started subtly. A slight shift in the background radiation, a barely detectable alteration in the quantum foam that underlied space-time itself. The quintessent sensors, among the most advanced in the galaxy, registered the anomaly but couldn't classify it. "Admiral," the sensor operator's voice carried a note of confusion. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. They're coming from everywhere." The tactical display lit up like a festival. Energy readings spiked across 17 different locations, not just in the Sol system, but across the galaxy. Each signature was impossibly vast, drawing power from sources the hegemony couldn't identify. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, alarms began to sound. "Report!" Zixandra snapped. "The signatures are—" "Admiral, they're artificial constructs, massive ones. They're powering up simultaneously across multiple star systems. Through their quantum communication network, reports flooded in from hegemony outposts across the galaxy. The dead human colonies, worlds that had been sterilized decades ago, were lighting up with energy readings that defied comprehension. On Kepler 186f, where the hegemony had glassed every human settlement 40 years ago, something vast stirred beneath the planet's crust. On Proxima Centauri b, where human colonists had supposedly died in a reactor accident, artificial auroras began dancing in the atmosphere. Across 17 worlds, the dead were awakening. Admiral Voss's voice reached them through Ansible transmission, calm and inexorable. "You wanted to see human warfare, Admiral Zixandra. You're about to learn why we never showed it to you." The first construct revealed itself at Wolf 359, where a human research colony had been accidentally destroyed by a hegemony mining operation 15 years prior. The planet's crust cracked open like an egg, revealing something that made the quintessent fleet look like toys. It was a sphere nearly 1,000 kilometers in diameter, its surface covered in geometries that hurt to perceive. As it rose from the planet's core, space itself seemed to bend around it, reality warping like heated glass. "Impossible," Zixandra whispered. "No species has that level of technology. Not even the ancients. The ancients never had humans helping them," came Voss's reply. "You see, Admiral, you made one crucial mistake. You assumed that because we seemed primitive, we actually were primitive. You never asked what we were hiding." Across the galaxy, 17 identical constructs emerged from worlds the hegemony thought they had cleansed. Each one had been built, in secret over decades, using a combination of human engineering and reverse-engineered alien technology. They had waited patiently, their automated systems maintaining perfect silence until the moment humanity needed them most. The constructs began to move, and as they did, the fabric of space-time itself began to sing. The hegemony's 3,000-year reign of terror was about to meet something it had never encountered. Humans who had had time to prepare. The quintessent Admiral Zixandra watched her instruments with growing horror as the 17 constructs aligned themselves across the galaxy. Each sphere pulsed with energy that registered off every scale her sensors possessed. "Analysis!" she barked at her science officer. "The constructs they're manipulating stellar mechanics, Admiral. They're using our own star's gravitational fields as focusing arrays." Through the Ansible network, reports cascaded in from across hegemony space. Every star system with a significant hegemony presence found itself host to one of the impossible spheres. They hung in space like dark prophecies, each one positioned at precise gravitational equilibrium points that should have taken centuries to calculate. On the bridge of Earth's concealed command station, Admiral Voss stood before a holographic display showing the galaxy-wide deployment. Dr. Kayana Thorne, humanity's chief xenotechnologist, ran final calculations on systems that blended human innovation with technology stolen from a dozen different species. 17 years of preparation, Thorne murmured, her fingers dancing across quantum processors that operated on principles the hegemony had never shared with primitive humans. Every trade delegation was a reconnaissance mission. Every cultural exchange was an intelligence operation. The truth was staggering in its scope. For 2 decades, humanity had played the role of the eager, primitive species, desperate to learn from their galactic betters. Human scientists had smiled and nodded while alien teachers explained simplified versions of their technology, never realizing that human minds were reverse engineering the complete systems from partial explanations. Every gift of hegemony technology had been dissected, understood, and improved upon. Every alien visitor to human space had been secretly scanned, their biological and technological signatures cataloged. Every destroyed human colony had been a deliberate sacrifice, designed to convince the hegemony that humanity was weak while allowing the real colonists to escape through hidden tunnel networks. "Stellar positioning confirmed," reported Commander Orth Blackmane from the tactical station. "All constructs are locked onto primary hegemony worlds. Gravitational lensing arrays are online." The constructs weren't weapons in any conventional sense. They were something far more elegant and terrible. They were stellar mechanics calculators operating on a galactic scale. Each sphere used its host star's gravity well to focus and amplify quantum fluctuations, creating resonance cascades that could be directed across interstellar distances. Admiral Voss opened a channel to the hegemony fleet. "Admiral Zixandra, you once asked what primitive humans could possibly do to advanced civilizations like yours. What is the meaning of this?" Zixandra's voice cracked with strain. Her ship's shields were beginning to fluctuate as the Sol construct's influence grew stronger. "Mathematics," Voss replied simply. "You see, while you were busy conquering worlds through brute force, we were studying the underlying principles that govern stellar mechanics. We learned something interesting. Every star is essentially a controlled fusion explosion held in check by gravitational equilibrium." The implications hit Zixandra like a physical blow. "You wouldn't. The energy requirements alone are well within our capabilities," Dr. Thorne interrupted, her voice joining the transmission. "Each construct draws power directly from its host star's core fusion process. We're not fighting against stellar mechanics, Admiral. We're conducting them." Across the galaxy, the 17 constructs began to resonate in perfect harmony. They had been positioned at precisely calculated points where their combined gravitational influences could create quantum interference patterns spanning light years. Each sphere was both a transmitter and a receiver in a galaxy-spanning network that turned the hegemony's own stars against them. "The beauty of the system," Voss continued conversationally, "is that it uses your own infrastructure against you. Every star in hegemony space becomes part of our targeting array. Every gravitational field becomes our weapon. The first demonstration came at the hegemony stronghold of Vega Prime. The construct there pulsed once, sending a carefully modulated gravitational wave through the system's star. The wave disrupted the stellar core's fusion balance for exactly 0.003 seconds, long enough to create a directed plasma ejection that vaporized the system's primary military installation. "Controlled stellar flares," Dr. Thorne explained cheerfully. "Targeted to the meter at interstellar distances. We can cook your fleets while leaving your civilian populations unharmed, or we can destabilize your star's cores entirely. Your choice." The hegemony fleet began to retreat, but space itself seemed to be turning against them. Their faster-than-light drives sputtered as the construct's influence distorted local space-time, and their weapon systems failed as quantum interference rendered their targeting computers useless. For 3 millennia, the hegemony had believed that superior technology guaranteed victory. They were about to learn that superior understanding was far more dangerous. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Representatives from across hegemony, space materialized as holograms, their various forms unified by expressions of panic and disbelief. The proud empire that had dominated the galaxy for 3 millennia was experiencing something unprecedented: fear. Velthara's crystalline features flickered with stress fractures as she struggled to maintain composure. "The humans have somehow weaponized stellar mechanics themselves. They're holding our entire civilization hostage with 17 devices that defy our understanding of physics." The hegemonic claw representative clicked his mandibles in distress. "The Proxima construct eliminated our 7th fleet without firing a single conventional weapon. It simply convinced their star to have an extremely localized coronary event. 40,000 ships, gone in minutes." In the depths of space, Admiral Voss listened to the intercepted council proceedings with satisfaction. The human command station, concealed within what appeared to be an asteroid field, buzzed with activity as technicians monitored the 17 constructs across the galaxy. Dr. Thorne approached with a quantum tablet displaying real-time stellar data. "The hegemony is beginning to evacuate their core worlds. They're finally taking us seriously." "Too little. Too late," replied Commander Blackmane, studying tactical displays. "Intelligence reports indicate they're attempting to develop countermeasures. They still don't understand what they're facing." The truth was that the constructs represented a fundamental paradigm shift in how warfare could be conducted. For millennia, galactic conflicts had been decided by whoever possessed the largest fleets or the most destructive weapons. Humanity had chosen a different approach. They had learned to speak the language of the universe itself. Each construct was essentially a quantum computer the size of a small moon, capable of performing calculations that would take traditional processors centuries to complete. They had been designed not just to manipulate stellar mechanics, but to predict and counter virtually any response the hegemony might devise. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Kess Mourvier from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting terms for surrender." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the assembled council representatives. Velthara stepped forward, her proud bearing replaced by something resembling humility. "Admiral Voss," she began, her voice carefully controlled, "the Galactic Council formally acknowledges that we may have underestimated humanity's capabilities. We are prepared to discuss revised terms for your species' integration into galactic society." Voss studied the alien faces before her, reading fear poorly disguised as diplomacy. These beings had spent generations conquering weaker species, secure in their technological superiority. Now they faced something that challenged their most fundamental assumptions about power and warfare. Integration? Voss's voice carried a note of amusement. "Ambassador, I think you still don't understand the situation. We're not interested in integration. We're interested in justice." The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. Justice was not a concept the hegemony typically encountered from defeated species. "For 3 centuries," Voss continued, "your Forces have systematically destroyed human colonies, enslaved human populations, and treated our species as expendable resources. 17 worlds burned because you couldn't tolerate the idea of an independent human presence in the galaxy. Dr. Thorne stepped into the transmission field. What you're experiencing now is not a negotiation. It's a demonstration. We want you to understand exactly how powerless you are when facing a species that has had time to study your weaknesses. The constructs pulsed in unison, sending carefully modulated gravitational waves through every hegemony star system simultaneously. No damage was caused, but the message was clear. Humanity could reach every corner of their empire at will. However, Voss added, "We are not the monsters you are. We don't wage war on civilian populations or commit genocide for the sake of convenience. We're prepared to offer terms, but they will be our terms, not yours." The silence stretched across the galaxy as the Council absorbed the implications. For the first time in their civilization's history, they were the ones receiving ultimatums. Velthara finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are your terms?" Admiral Voss smiled, and the expression was not entirely pleasant. "First, the immediate withdrawal of all hegemony forces from human space. Second, full reparations for every destroyed colony and enslaved population. Third, the establishment of an independent human protectorate encompassing 50 star systems of our choosing. And if we refuse?" asked the hegemonic claw representative. Dr. Thorne answered with the cold precision of a scientist. "Then we demonstrate what 17 stars look like when their fusion processes are simultaneously destabilized. We calculate the resulting supernovae would sterilize approximately 60% of inhabited hegemony space." The Council fell silent. In the span of a single week, humanity had transformed from a primitive annoyance into the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The surrender came not with fanfare, but with the quiet desperation of a civilization that had finally encountered something it couldn't conquer. The hegemony's formal capitulation arrived through quantum channels, transmitted simultaneously to every human outpost across the galaxy. Admiral Voss read the document aloud to her assembled staff, her voice carrying a mixture of satisfaction and grim purpose. Complete withdrawal from the Terran exclusion zone, full technological reparations, and formal recognition of human sovereignty over 73 star systems. 73? Commander Blackmane raised an eyebrow. "We only asked for 50, Dr. Thorne smiled as she manipulated the holographic display showing hegemony fleet movements. "They're hoping generosity will prevent us from pressing our advantages further. They still don't understand that we're not interested in conquest." Across the galaxy, the 17 constructs maintained their vigilant positions, their quantum processors continuously monitoring stellar activities throughout hegemony space. Each sphere had become a permanent reminder of humanity's reach, a sword of Damocles hanging over every alien world that had once scorned Earth's primitive defenses. But the constructs served another purpose that the hegemony was only beginning to discover. As human technical teams began implementing the terms of surrender, they revealed the true scope of their infiltration of galactic society. Captain Lyra Hendricks materialized via hologram from the Vegan system, where she was overseeing the liberation of human slave populations. "Admiral, you need to see this. The hegemony's records indicate over 4 million humans in forced labor across their territory. The survivors have some interesting stories to tell." The testimonies that followed painted a picture of systematic oppression that went far beyond what the Galactic Council had admitted. Human scientists forced to develop weapons for their captors, human miners stripped of basic rights and worked to death in alien atmospheres, human children separated from their families and raised as indentured servants. Most disturbing of all were the reports from humans who had been used as test subjects for biological weapons designed to target Earth's population. "They weren't just planning to conquer us," reported Dr. Marcus Redstone, a xenobiologist who had spent 15 years as a hegemony research slave. They were developing pathogens specifically designed to eliminate human physiology while leaving other species unharmed. The ultimate genocide weapon. Admiral Voss felt something cold settle in her chest as she reviewed the data. The hegemony's contempt for humanity ran deeper than mere xenophobia. It was a calculated attempt at species-level extinction. "Dr. Thorne," she said quietly, "begin Phase 2 of the construct's programming." The second phase of humanity's stellar network revealed capabilities that even the construct's designers hadn't fully appreciated. Each sphere began transmitting detailed quantum signatures across the galaxy, signatures that precisely matched the biological patterns of every hegemony species. Within hours, every alien world found their atmospheric processors, water purification, systems, and food production facilities operating under new management. The constructs hadn't just weaponized the stars, they had infiltrated the basic infrastructure that sustained galactic civilization. Velthara's emergency transmission reached Earth with barely concealed panic. "What have you done? Our life support. Systems are responding to human control codes." "Insurance," Voss replied calmly. "We've discovered that your people were developing biological weapons targeted specifically at human physiology. We decided to return the favor." The truth was both simpler and more complex than the aliens imagined. Human infiltration of hegemony. Technology had been so thorough that they had embedded quantum backdoors in virtually every system the aliens relied upon for survival. Every trade agreement had included human-manufactured components. Every technology transfer had carried hidden human programming. "We could shut down your life support across 1,000 worlds with a single command," Dr. Thorne explained conversationally. "We could poison your water supplies, corrupt your food synthesizers, or simply turn off your artificial gravity, but we won't because, unlike you, we don't wage war on civilian populations." The demonstration continued with surgical precision. On military installations throughout hegemony space, weapon systems began powering down. Starship engines went offline. Communication networks developed mysterious glitches that prevented coordination between fleets. Only civilian infrastructure remained untouched, a deliberate message that humanity distinguished between combatants and innocents. "You wanted to see human warfare," Admiral Voss said as reports of system failures cascaded in from across the galaxy. "This is what it looks like when we stop pretending to be primitive. We don't need to destroy your worlds, we can simply turn them off." The Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session, their representatives flickering with the instability of compromised communication systems. The proud civilization that had dominated the galaxy for millennia found itself at the mercy of the species they had dismissed as irrelevant. "What do you want?" Velthara asked, her crystalline features dimmed with defeat. Admiral Voss considered the question carefully. Around her, the command station hummed with activity as human technicians coordinated the liberation of their people across dozens of worlds. Through the viewports, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, a planet that had been written off as insignificant, whose children had instead reshaped the balance of galactic power. "Justice," she said finally. "Not conquest, justice." 6 months. After the hegemony's surrender, the galaxy was learning to navigate a reality none of its civilizations had imagined possible. The quarterly meeting of the Galactic Council convened not in the traditional chambers of hegemony space, but in the Sol system, a symbolic shift that left many alien representatives deeply uncomfortable. Admiral Voss, now bearing the title of Terran Protector, observed the proceedings from the newly constructed Olympus station. The massive orbital facility served as both diplomatic center and a constant reminder of humanity's transformed status. Through its transparent aluminum viewports, Earth rotated serenely below, no longer the vulnerable target it had once been. "The vegan liberation is complete," reported Captain Hendricks via quantum link. 4,300 human survivors recovered and relocated to New Geneva Colony. Medical teams report most will make full recoveries. The liberation effort had revealed horrors that even human intelligence hadn't fully anticipated. Generations of human families had been separated, their children raised as property of alien civilizations. Scientists and engineers had been forced to develop weapon systems designed to destroy their own homeworld. The psychological scars ran deep, but humanity had learned patience in all things. Dr. Thorne materialized beside Voss as a hologram, transmitting from the Kepler 442b research facility, where she was overseeing the integration of captured hegemony technology. The stellar constructs are operating at optimal efficiency. We're detecting compliance across all 73 protectorate systems, and the hegemony fleets are maintaining their required distances. The 17 constructs continued their silent vigil across the galaxy, each one a testament to humanity's transformation from victim to guardian. But their true purpose had evolved beyond simple deterrence. The quantum network they maintained now served as a galactic early warning system, monitoring for any signs of renewed aggression or attempts to develop weapons of mass destruction. More importantly, Thorne continued, we're receiving applications for membership in the Terran Protectorate from 12 different species. Apparently, word is spreading that we offer protection without conquest. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The hegemony had spent millennia expanding through force and intimidation, creating a galaxy full of subjugated species that hated and feared their overlords. Humanity had achieved in months what the aliens had failed to accomplish in centuries, willing cooperation based on mutual respect. Ambassador Velthara appeared on the diplomatic channel, her crystalline features showing stress patterns that had become increasingly common. Protector Voss, the Council requests clarification on your recent territorial expansions. 7 new systems have declared independence from hegemony control and requested human protection. And, Voss replied mildly, the terms of surrender specified 73 systems under human protection. We are now showing 84, Voss smiled. The surrender terms specified that humanity would exercise direct control over 73 systems. They said nothing about other species requesting our protection from hegemony oppression. The truth was that humanity's approach to galactic politics was proving dangerously attractive to species that had endured millennia of hegemony rule. Unlike their former overlords, humans offered technology sharing without forced integration, military protection without political subjugation, and trade agreements without tribute demands. Commander Blackmane joined the conversation from his position aboard the newly commissioned human dreadnought Lazarus Rising. Intelligence reports indicate the hegemony is experiencing widespread civil unrest. 17 member species have declared independence in the past month alone. Their empire is collapsing from within. Revolution, observed Dr. Thorne, tends to be contagious. Once people realize their oppressors aren't invincible, the whole system becomes unstable. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in angry chittering and electronic protests as hegemony representatives realized the implications. Their 3,000-year empire wasn't just defeated, it was disintegrating as subject species followed. Humanity's example of successful resistance. This was not part of the agreement. Velthara's voice cracked with strain. You promised not to actively encourage rebellion. We haven't, Voss replied truthfully. We've simply demonstrated that resistance is possible. What other species choose to do with that knowledge is their own decision. The stellar constructs pulsed in gentle synchronization, their quantum networks carrying messages of hope and coordination between liberation movements across the galaxy. Each sphere had become not just a weapon, but a lighthouse, a beacon showing enslaved civilizations that freedom was achievable. The hegemony will not survive this, admitted the hegemonic claw, representative, his mandibles clicking with resignation. Within a standard year, perhaps 2, our member species will have declared independence. 3 millennia of expansion, ended by a species we considered primitive. Admiral Voss nodded solemnly. Perhaps that's for the best. Empires built on oppression tend to collapse eventually. The question is whether something better can take their place. She gestured toward the holographic display showing the current galactic situation. Red zones marked continued hegemony control, while blue areas indicated human protectorate space. But increasingly, green markers showed independent systems that had overthrown their alien overlords without requesting formal human protection. "We're not trying to replace the hegemony as galactic rulers," Voss explained. "We're trying to create a galaxy where ruling isn't necessary, where species can cooperate as equals rather than conquerors and subjects." The concept was so alien to hegemony, thinking that several representatives struggled to process it through their translation systems. 10 years had passed since the day Admiral Voss first activated the Lazarus Protocol, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The emergency session of what was now called the Cooperative Council convened aboard Olympus Station, with representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had never been permitted to speak in the old hegemony chambers. The view from the council chamber's observation deck showed a solar system that bore little resemblance to the vulnerable target the hegemony had once planned to sterilize. Massive orbital habitats ringed Earth like jeweled necklaces, while terraforming ships departed regularly for newly discovered worlds throughout the Terran Protectorate. Admiral Voss, now graying at the temples but still sharp-eyed, listened to the day's reports with quiet satisfaction. The 17 stellar constructs had evolved far beyond their original purpose as weapons, becoming the backbone of an interstellar communication and monitoring network that maintained peace across dozens of sectors. The final hegemony holdout, World has requested admission to the cooperative, reported Ambassador Keiko Sato, who had replaced Voss as humanity's primary diplomatic representative. The quintessent survivors want to discuss terms for integration into the galactic community. The irony was profound. Velthara's people, once the proud architects of galactic oppression, were now refugees seeking protection from the very species they had once scorned. Their homeworld had been abandoned after a civil war between those who accepted the new galactic order and those who still dreamed of restored dominion. Dr. Thorne, now Director of Interspecies Technology Development, appeared via hologram from the research station at Alpha Centauri. "The integration process is proceeding smoothly. We've successfully adapted quintessent crystalline technology for peaceful applications. Their energy-focusing capabilities are proving invaluable for stellar engineering projects." The transformation hadn't been without challenges. Some species struggled to adapt to a galaxy without clear hierarchies or ruling powers. Others found the concept of voluntary cooperation so foreign that they required decades of careful guidance to participate effectively in interspecies relations. But the results spoke for themselves. Trade flourished between worlds that had once been forbidden to interact. Scientific advancement accelerated as knowledge was shared freely rather than hoarded by ruling elites. Art and culture blossomed as species learned from each other's perspectives and experiences. Captain Hendricks, now Admiral of the Terran Protection Fleet, transmitted her report from the edge of unexplored space. "Long-range scouts have detected signs of another galactic civilization approximately 20,000 light-years spinward. Initial indications suggest they may be expanding in our direction." The news sent a ripple of concern through the assembled representatives. The galaxy had grown comfortable with peace, but the universe was vast and filled with unknown threats. "Their expansion pattern matches historical hegemony tactics," Hendricks continued. "Conquest through overwhelming force, subjugation of weaker species, systematic resource extraction. If they continue their current trajectory, contact is inevitable within 50 standard years." Velthara, now serving as a cultural liaison despite her species' former status, spoke from her position among the cooperative delegates. "What will humanity do if this new civilization proves hostile? Will you activate your stellar weapons again?" Admiral Voss considered the question carefully. Around the chamber, Representatives from hundreds of species waited for her answer. Species that had learned to trust human judgment in matters of galactic security. "If necessary," she replied finally. "But that's not our preferred approach anymore." She gestured toward the stellar display showing the current extent of the cooperative's influence. Nearly half the galaxy now fell under the protection of the peaceful alliance that had grown from humanity's initial rebellion against hegemony rule. 50 years is a long time, Voss continued. Long enough to expand our network, improve our technology, and offer this new civilization something the hegemony never had, a choice. Dr. Thorne nodded agreement. The constructs have evolved far beyond their original specifications. We can now project our influence across intergalactic distances. When this new empire encounters us, they won't be meeting a single species with advanced weapons. They'll be meeting an alliance of hundreds of civilizations united by shared values. The plan that emerged from the session was ambitious in scope, but familiar in its fundamental approach. Humanity would do what it had always done best: prepare, observe, and offer alternatives to violence. Deep space monitoring stations would track the approaching civilization's movement. Diplomatic protocols would be developed for first contact. And if necessary, the stellar constructs would be expanded to protect not just the Terran Protectorate, but the entire cooperative alliance. "There's something poetic about it," observed Commander Blackmane, now serving as strategic coordinator for cooperative defense. "They said Earth was weak until their suns exploded with the fury of our return. But the real victory wasn't in proving our strength. It was in proving that strength could be used to create rather than destroy." As the session concluded, Admiral Voss remained on the observation deck, watching Earth turn slowly beneath the stars. The planet that had once been dismissed as insignificant now served as the heart of an interstellar civilization built on cooperation rather than conquest. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from humanity's rise. The greatest strength wasn't in the ability to destroy your enemies, but in the wisdom to turn them into allies. And as new challenges emerged from the depths of space, that lesson would prove more valuable than any weapon. In the end, they had said Earth was weak, until the universe itself became their ally in the cause of justice. The suns hadn't just exploded with the fury of humanity's return. They had illuminated a new dawn for countless worlds seeking freedom among the stars. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as humanity had intended.